careers in tech. My name is Yemrai Chinyane, and I am your host. So we're running this session concurrently on Clubhouse and on Zoom to accommodate as many people as possible. So today we are going to be talking about leveraging on your online presence to position yourself for a thriving tech career. And to do that, I have Jane Egerton Idehen, Facebook's head of sales for Middle East and Africa. So besides being a tech executive, Jane is also an author and a speaker. So today we are really in it for a treat. So earlier on this year, after her appointment at Facebook, Jane shared her story on how she leveraged on her online presence to land her next dream role. And you are about to hear that story firsthand and learn how you too can position yourself for your next dream role. Jane, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
It's good to be here. It's good to be here. I'm really excited. As I've been reading more about you, I've been, getting more anticipation to just have this session with you today.
Oh, thank you, Yemura. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I hope you are all ready and excited because we are about to hit the road running. So to get us started, Jane, could you please just tell us briefly about your journey in your career in tech? I mean, from the time you were an engineer up to now when you're a regional head. Oh my God, that's so exciting. Please walk us through how that was for you. A lot of people want to hear and learn how they can navigate through their careers. How was it for you?
Well, it's been a journey, let me put it that way, because they always say I believe your career is a journey. Sometimes it's not like a straight linear path. But I started off as an engineer, not because I was so clear. I think as a young girl, you're not too sure, but I do recall, hearing my mother have a conversation with a very close friend. And that close friend was explaining to my mother that, her son was studying engineering. It was so difficult and people are failing out of the class. They started with a certain percentage of people, but now like just a smaller amount is graduating. And as a young girl, I think it caught my attention and I told myself, I want to do that. So it just goes to show, and as an adult, when I think back, I'm like, I probably was drawn to challenges. I'm probably one of those people that are driven by challenges. But I went to a boarding school, and in that boarding school, I got exposed to a lot of people, the middle class of the society, because I was coming from very humble beginnings. Like my parents literally could not afford that school, on a level playing field. But because it was government sponsored and it was based on, the idea was to find a way to bring different tribes of the country together. So they're looking for smart kids that meet a criteria to come to the school. So there I find myself in the school, and the first 3 years, I think I was lost because I had no plan, no agenda. I was just happy to be there. I was just happy to say I attend this school, but somewhere in the middle, you get this aha moment. All I remember is that whenever we had breaks in school, I couldn't go home because my parents couldn't afford for me to come home and go back. So I literally would stay in the school, especially when there's short breaks. And one of those short breaks, you know how it is, you get bored, and I thought about teaching people. So I would read and just explain to them. It was meant to be like some funny joke. But I found out after the break, I could answer all the questions the teacher taught because I really studied it because I wanted to teach. And that's how I got exposed to, you could get an A so easily. Why don't you figure out how to get A's? And that's where I became more confident. I tell people because it's good to be clear about the journey. My first test in physics, I got a 0, physics, which is key for engineering. I got a 0, but that doesn't determine your journey. I think the teacher was probably trying to bring awareness to the fact that you have to work harder. But I went on, started making A's because I all of a sudden got interested. I'm like, it's so easy to make A's. I made A's. I wanted to study engineering. I went back home. But because of my environment, I came back to this environment where people would tell me things like, who do you think you are to think you could just study engineering? It's for men, it's difficult, it's hard. You this little girl, you just go around saying you want to study engineering. So, and I want to say that to show that the process also is not direct and it's not always clear. Confidence builds as you make baby steps. 2 weeks before I submitted my application for college, I changed. I changed the course of study from engineering to whatever was meant to be easy. But when I got to the university I was meant to get in, and I saw that if I left my course of study as engineering, I would have made the top 10 on the list. Like I literally was good. Why did I let other people deter me? Why was I having taken all those noise? And also as a young person, you're impressionable. But there and then, what that taught me is that my dreams are mine to protect. Your vision, your goal is yours to protect. Others don't have to believe in it. Others will look at things externally to judge you. You know how driven and how much you want it. That lesson was priceless. And ever since then, I go ahead with my crazy dreams. I don't care if you don't believe it. If I believe it and I'm keen, I'm working on it. But that was a good milestone for me to learn from. So I studied engineering. I came out. My first job, I worked as a satellite engineer or a teleport engineer. So I used to work in the satellite earth station. You know, if you're into satellites, you have this ground station or earth station where you actually monitor the satellites in space and you're receiving satellite terminals. So that's where it was a roster job. You know, you had a schedule. I was the only female on the team, but I was so happy to be there. As usual, like I was happy to be there. Like we ran shifts. I didn't care to give me the night shift. So everybody would give me the shifts they didn't want. You know, Christmas and holidays, people wanted to spend time at home and they were looking for who would take their shift. They knew I was always there. I was just hungry to learn. I wanted to be an engineer. So I would do that for about a year plus. Then I got a job with Ericsson. Ericsson is one of the big telecom vendors. And that was one of those things I just saw the ad, it looked interesting and I applied and I got in. But I was happy because it was technical. But then I started my technical journey with Ericsson. I would spend a total of 13 years, but you know, somewhere halfway, I think at the 8th year or 7th year, I left. I went to Nokia, and after Nokia, I came back to Ericsson. And after that, I went to Avanti. Avanti is a satellite company. So back to satellite, back to my first love. I will spend about 4 years there. It's a satellite company. It's a company that owns a fleet of satellites in space, but they are Ka band satellites. I would run their operations for West Africa because it was a British-based company, but they had some satellites for Africa. So I ran the West African operations. And after that, I found myself in Facebook, which is a story on its own. So here I am now in Facebook.
That's really an amazing story. What I loved and picked from that is you need to defend your dream. You need to defend your vision like it's nobody else's business, whether or not you get the affirmation from outside. That was very interesting. That was very interesting, Jane. So from your journey, how has your online presence helped you from one role to the other, and specifically with this particular role at Facebook?
So I think being in tech, you don't shy away from technology. You're probably one of the first consumers for new tech, you know, because we're always curious, like, what's this new platform about? What are they into? Like, you know, any new platform, you just want to, it's like playing with a toy. So I know in the early days, I was just present online because I thought it was a good way to store. So frankly speaking, I would store Yahoo photos and like shuttle. I use them as a storage mechanism. Like I don't want to store all these pictures on my laptop or my desktop. I would just store them online. And, you know, we try, you know, emails, the same thing, was mostly for communication. There wasn't much about it until we saw the social media players come on board. And originally, frankly, when I just started with platforms like Facebook, my goal was to store videos there. I'm like, I don't want to be storing too many videos on my devices. I want to store them somewhere, like having a video album, where if in future I wanted to go back, I could find it there easily, and I don't have to pay for it.
Okay.
But of course, the platform started growing. I got on LinkedIn, you know, this platform were growing, and I found out that LinkedIn was a very professional platform. So it was good for almost creating a professional CV. I say this so that people can see the nuances and the difference as well. So LinkedIn for me became more like, as you have a resume, like a hard copy or a paper resume, think about having an online resume. So if you wanted to have a resume where people could find anything about your professional career without you having to give them the hard copy or email them, that is how I initially saw LinkedIn. So it was for me like a good way to, if people were interested in my career, I'm like, just checking my LinkedIn profile. But later it evolved to, wow, I could use this as a piece to show my thought leadership, because I had decided I wanted to define myself as a leader in the tech space in Africa. Now I'm trying to be explicit so people know that is intentional. You need to have a strategy. So even though initially I was just about using them as storage spaces, I'd gotten to the point I now defined my own personal mission statement, and I was using them as tools. So that's how I use them, as tools to execute my mission statement. So I had decided, oh, I wanted to be a thought leader on the African continent in tech, and I want to use these platforms as tools. So LinkedIn gave a good platform for thought leadership as a professional. And so you see, I would write PCs and put them there. I'll read people's articles and put them there. And what happened is that you start to build an audience as well, because, because I was talking a lot about my career experience, my career experiences as a woman in tech on the African continent. And I was sharing a lot of insight based on the technology or the career journey itself as a woman. And, people would respond. And some of them were my views because they were my experience. So I do love the engagement. When people engage and they would like to know, okay, like, but did this happen? Didn't this happen? Did you think about this? Why didn't you talk about this? And I love that it was a good way to engage. I would share the same content on Instagram, on LinkedIn, but slightly differently. So if you would check, it will be slightly different. Instagram will be probably more picture-based and a bit more personal. I'll probably post it with a little story, telling you the story behind the article. So if I put an article up, I would want to give you the backstory behind what inspired it, why I wrote it, or what challenged me, or what I thought was key as the message I wanted people to take as an outfit. So it would be a bit more personal, a bit more vulnerable in terms of really opening up. And of course, on Facebook, it will slightly be that. But now, if I wanted to put other like videos or pictures and all that, I could do that. So each platform had its own, in a way you define your content and put it best and the best way you wanted to engage in that platform. So I started doing that, but I did that because I also had a book out. So I wrote a book in 2017 and I published the book, and I wanted to use the platforms as well to promote my book. So whenever I used the platform in different ways, either to look for actually avenues to promote the book, like podcasters. I would go to LinkedIn and look for podcasters. I would send them a message. Are they interested? Do we share the same goals? Or are we talking about the same, are we, talking all about the same topic? Would that audience find my book interested? So I used LinkedIn a lot for that. I didn't use Facebook for that, neither did I use Instagram for that. It was mostly LinkedIn. But the good thing was that I was using that to also promote my book. So I used that a lot in promoting my book. But like what I said, LinkedIn became more like an online resume that was more than a paper resume, because it didn't just show you my career progression. It showed you my thought process. It also showed you my achievements. It showed you a bit of how I engaged and my personality. I say this because people need to understand that sometimes you need to be deliberate, because people can read. And personally, I was also using those kind of platforms. When I would recruit or before an interview, I would go check in the candidate's LinkedIn platform, LinkedIn profiles, because I wanted to know a bit about them. So when you wanted to engage with them, you knew how best to engage. I also used it for networking. But to cut the long story short, so I put that all out there. And I used to have a lot of headhunters, actually. look at my profile and they would send me links for jobs. Most times I wasn't interested. I would actually recommend to them, at this time, I'm not interested in changing jobs or making a career move. Can I recommend other people to you? And that's why LinkedIn is also important. And if people said yes, I just send them a couple of LinkedIn profile links. I'm like, check out these candidates. You might find them. Most times, even the people they know. Other times, I can send a message to the candidate and say, hey, I shared your profile with this headhunter, just in case he approaches you and you might be interested. And so sometime in late 2017, I think, sorry, 2020, one of those headhunters was actually recruiting for Facebook. And he had gone on my profile and saw the work I was doing. And he believed that based on what he saw, that my profile matched what he was looking for. And he actually sent me a message on LinkedIn. And initially he sent it as usual. I was like, am I so sure I really want to do? He wanted to just chat or send an email. And I'm like, you know what? Before I go ahead, because I didn't want to waste his time as well, send me a profile of what the job looks like and let me have a look and see if it interests me. Then I'll let you know if we should, go ahead with a phone call. And he sent that to me. It looked a bit interesting. I'm like, okay, I'd like to hear more. Let's have a chat. And he called. I gave him my mobile number and he called. So we chatted and it looked interesting. And the more we chatted, the more excited I was and the more excited he was. So there was a match because both parties were excited. And I'm like, no, we could do this. And I think this would be good because I did this. And we were both excited. And he's like, oh, perfect. Let's go for it. And that's how we started the interview process. Entirely online. Everything was done virtually. I had like 4 stages of interview. Everything was done virtually. I accepted the job virtually. I traveled. Like, it was such a funny story because when I tell it to people that are very traditional, they'd be like, so you never saw anyone and you took your things and you traveled all the way to another continent? I'm like, yeah, that's the world we live in. So I accepted the job offer and it required that I relocate, but of course the company sorted that all out and I relocated. And that is how I found the job on Facebook. But I say this because it's becoming the norm. I use a lot of these online platforms to do a lot. So like I said, I use it to look for candidates, even when I recruit for my nonprofit, when I recruit on the job, because we find that sometimes it's easier to literally look for the talent than just to put out a request and have 3 million people send you CVs and you have to search through all those CVs. If you actually are targeted at it, and sometimes, remember, we find a candidate very attractive and we start to wait for the right opportunity. So there have been cases like that where I see someone's online profile and I'm so impressed with what they're doing, I start to follow them because we are interested in recruiting them sometime in the future. So yes, that is how I ended up in Facebook.
Wow, thank you so much. That was so insightful.
Yeah.
I like what you said initially to say you had an objective for using each platform and you were intentional. So before you even start thinking of, okay, I'm going to be using LinkedIn to put myself out there, I'm going to be using Instagram, whichever platform that you're going to use, you need to have an objective. Say, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to become a voice in the tech industry, particularly for African women in tech. And you begin to use that as that platform, and that's what worked for you. And I also like that beyond LinkedIn being just a CV, it's also a place where you can actually demonstrate yourself as a thought leader in a particular subject. A lot of people shy away. That's something that I've noticed. A lot of people shy away from commenting, from posting on LinkedIn. They'll like posts, they will here and there reshare, but a lot of people just stand by the sidelines. And what I've realized is standing by the sidelines does not get you
Doesn't
anywhere.
work. You shouldn't. You should. People want to know you. They want to know
Yeah.
what you're thinking. So the only way you can show that is when you comment. When you write a comment, you comment on something you find interesting.
Yes, exactly. And also when you demonstrate value, how do you demonstrate value? By the content that you're sharing. That's how
Yes.
people see that, okay, she knows what she's talking about. She's got experience in this area, and she's also confident to even speak about it on a platform such as for instance, LinkedIn. So it is important to have the confidence to air out your voice, air out your views, because that's what will position you for career growth and for that next dream role. And congratulations on your
Thank you.
Yes. So, what are some mistakes that you have seen other women make or other professionals make online that sabotage their career growth?
I think the very common one is, first of all, not being present. Do you get what I being there and not being present? So you see people with LinkedIn profiles that you go, first of all, you don't have a picture. I always say put up a picture. Like my rule is that I don't accept LinkedIn requests if there's no picture. I just want to see who is behind the profile. So put up a picture, fill the profile up. Just don't put up your name. You know, sometimes there's no job title or they don't care, they put something. Be a bit intentional. Tell us about your job, your career, your passion. You know, really define yourself because people want to know. And people you think might be interested actually want to know. They're not just interested in your name. There are plenty Janes there. So Jane Egerton, what is it about Jane Egerton or Jane Egerton's career that you would like them to know? So put it out there. And I know people sometimes find it difficult. There are professionals that can help you, but at least put the basic information there. So that one, first of all, I find frustrating, especially with people that I really respect. Like you see someone, you're really going there to check out and there is nothing in the profile apart from their name. Like you shouldn't even be present. Secondly, I would say really define your strategy for the platforms. You know, I know I've mentioned it. Because that's really the key message. You need to have a strategy before you start throwing things out there. Because once you don't, that's when you see the third mistake where people put the wrong content up. Sometimes I think it's too personal for a professional audience. You know, nobody wants to see you in your bathing suit. Like pretend is an audience in the office. Like how would you play it out in the office? Like how would you present yourself? How would you talk? What kind of images would you share? Do you share about, you know, the fact that, whatever you feel is not professional enough, maybe that should be your guide. That's another way to see it. Because some of the content people paste, I don't think is appropriate for the audience because it could be the next recruiter looking at it. It could be your boss looking at it. It could be the CEO of the company. It could be your regulator, stakeholders. So if that's not the content you want them to see for that audience, then I don't think you should be posting it there. And then the fourth one, I would say, especially if you've defined the strategy, because that was very important. Because everybody has a different strategy. And I would say that you all have your vision, you all have a mission, but have your strategy. I, for one, know that I want my platforms to mirror my core values. So that guides the content I generate. It guides the content I engage with. So that's the guide, first of all, because I'm clear about what my strategy will be. Then also, what do you want to use the strategy for that? The platforms for. And it could also depend on it could depend on the phase you are in your career. Are you job hunting or you have a job, but you want to define your leadership, you know? So maybe you're thinking of being a thought leader. In that case, you're using the platform slightly different. If you're job hunting or you're trying to start a career, you probably would use the platform as well because you're more looking for openings and opportunities. So slightly bit differently. So I think you first of all have to have thought about all this, and that would prevent you from making unnecessary mistakes on the platform. Because if you're job hunting and I don't want to say some of the things I see on the platform, it doesn't, like, I wouldn't even recruit you. I would check the comments you made. I'm like, no, I don't think this person represents what we want in this organization. So that's
Give
what
us example.
I've had people ask for money on the platform. I'm like, entirely wrong.
Yeah.
You know, send messages asking, oh, can you give me money for this, money for that? And you had already sent me a request saying you're looking for a job. And I told you, okay, let's see if I can recommend someone. So think about it, it's like walking into my office and asking for money when you don't know me. If there's no relationship, I don't think you should do that on the platform. And sometimes posting content that is too private. Like
Okay.
you're gone from a party, you're in a swimsuit and whatever, you guys are having a good time. I don't think you put that up in the office, so you shouldn't put that up in LinkedIn. because that is probably for a closer or private audience. That's not how you want the recruiter to see you probably. And that's not probably how you want your future boss or your current boss to see you. Maybe those are private moments, then you should keep them private. So those are some of the mistakes people make. And I feel like, wait, that is out of line. Then the fourth one, which is not necessarily a mistake, but I think is people not tapping into the power of the platform, is engaging. And engaging doesn't necessarily mean you have to generate content. They're two different things, because most people are comfortable consuming content. They're not comfortable generating because it's hard work. But the hard work pays, by the way. If you can generate content, you can write, make your own videos, share your own thoughts, share your own leadership. But if you can't, there are other ways as well to share content and engage. You could share content of people or platform or organizations or things you find quite interesting, because it gives us an idea of what you're also thinking. Think about it. If I find an article written, I don't know, Forbes or Harvard Business Review on negotiation, I thought it was important. People know how to negotiate for their first salary, and I share it. Anybody reading that knows that, oh, this Jane is interested in soft skills like negotiation. Also, when you comment, especially when you see interesting articles, it gives us an idea. It's like it's like having a conversation in the office. It gives me your own idea, your own perception, your own perspective of the topic. And sometimes that's what we want to know. What's your perspective? Think about it when you're in college or in school. If you write an assignment, you talk about, based on A, based on C, but finally you want to also share your own perspective of the topic. And that's what we also want to see on this platform, because that's how we define what you're all about, is by hearing your own perspective. So that the fourth one is not necessarily a mistake. I think people not, especially women, are not, because people feel like, oh, I don't want to put my business out in the open. It's not your business, especially it's for good. You're actually helping people. You're making it easier for recruiters, making it easier for people that want to engage with you, to know who you are and what you stand for. So please go ahead and share your thoughts. It's a platform that gives you a voice. We want to hear your voice. So please go ahead and do that.
Thank you so much, Jane. I like how you say you need to be present on the social media platforms. You need to not just exist, but be present by generating content, engaging other people. And that's very interesting, because a lot of people want to shy out or feel at times it's bragging when you're putting out all your information out there for the world to see. But it works out for your audience, and it also works out for you at the end of the day. So that's why you need to actually step out. I wanted to find out from, as you were sharing concerning then deciding on which role to take up next, especially considering that a lot of recruiters were coming into your inbox with different roles. How have you mastered the art of choosing, okay, this is the role that I would like to get into. I wouldn't want to get into this role. What's best for me in this particular time? How to make career choices when the opportunities actually then present themselves?
I think I'm probably on the receiving end, because I'm getting all these opportunities. For some people, they're not getting it, and that is also a problem of wanting to find out, how do we get it? Maybe I would love to answer that for the audience, then I'll answer your other question. So how do you get the opportunities? You go look for them. You know that there are groups on the platform, and some of those groups are groups where recruiters also sit. It could be like a group for like a university, a group for a business college. It could be group for different professionals. When you go to those groups, engage, because as you're engaging, people are reading that content. Somebody posts something about a topic you find interesting, a topic that you're passionate about, a topic which you do, especially when it's got to do with your career, because you probably are into operations, or you are into coding, or you are into, you're into design, you're into software engineering. Now, in those groups, the only way to get visible is to engage, because when you engage, it could be just putting out a tweet like, also, not a tweet, today was a great day because I had been trying to write a code about this on this particular software, and I hacked it today. These are the 5 steps I went about. I follow to hack it. And you could put that all there and everybody's asking you questions, or somebody could have put it out there and then you would ask them questions. So, step number 5, I find that interesting because I did it and it didn't work for me. Or first step number 5 wouldn't work on this software. Maybe because you coded it on that software. That is what we're talking about engagement. I don't think it's complicated. But once you do that, think about it. If I was on the sidelines, I'm your future boss, or I'm the future recruiter, I know that, wow, first of all, this person is good. He thought through this process. If you posted it, even though you engage, it means that you read it and you understand the difference between what you're going through. So you must have that depth in knowledge to have known that for different software, this wouldn't work. And I'll be curious to check your profile and say, let's see more about this. Maybe this is the kind of guy we want for problem solving. So make yourself visible that way, engage, go to those places and engage. Not just places where people make jokes. I'm not saying it's not good to make jokes, but if you're really curious, if you're interested to work for, and I give this as always an example to young people that come to me, for companies you're interested to work for, follow people that work there, especially people that are high up. Okay. It gives you a sense of what is happening in the company. You start to engage them. And before you know it, you could even be online friends and you can ask them questions. Oh, I'm curious to know what are the steps for software developers in your company? Or I see you put out a post about, about system design. Is this how you guys do system design? Or the system design require the certification? That's how you start engaging. Sometimes they respond, sometimes they don't respond. But the more you do it, you find that you find people that can actually engage. So that is for that question. I just wanted to put it out there because I felt that not everybody is in the receiving end of getting headhunters come to you. Now, headhunters likely would come to me because I generate a lot of content. And once you start to do that, you build an audience. If you build an audience, people see you as a pipeline. Like people know that if they come to Jane, even though Jane might not be interested in the role, she can recommend because she's got 10,000 followers and she engages a lot. So she must know quite a lot of people in this platform. So sometimes they'll be like, okay, in case it doesn't suit you, tell us who suits you, who do you recommend? And I would just check through and see this and this, check these profiles and see if it works. And so that's one of the reasons, it's good to generate content. And generating content doesn't have to be complicated, like I said. You could start by writing small paragraphs. You could make it a weekly habit. Say, every week, one challenge that I sorted out in the office, of course, without giving company information out, you could just talk about it. 5 steps I went through in negotiating a big contract deal I closed this month. 3 steps I went through in hacking a code I have been struggling with for months. 2 steps I went through to win over a client that has been difficult. 4 steps I went to land my first job. That is generating content. You put this out there, you start to build an audience. And as you build an audience, you become like a pipe because people know you have an audience. So if they're looking for people they want to recruit in, it could be a region. So because they know you have an audience that's mostly, for example, African, they'll be like, oh, we need somebody in Africa. This lady is somebody we could ask about, do you know someone in the sports circle in Africa? We're looking for someone to head our sports operation in Africa. They know you're not in sports, but they know that you're quite visible in the region. So maybe you can point them in the right direction. So those are some of the things so I would say generating content and being consistent with that. And we could go about generating content. There's a whole different scope. It doesn't have to be writing articles or making videos. It could be resharing article, reusing article and tweaking them. So you could take existing article and put your own spin on them, make it personal or put your thoughts about it or your perspective on it or your own spin, so those are ways you can actually create content. And, that's a whole different ballgame. We could talk about that, like I said, a whole different session. So, but once you start to do that, you build audience. And I think that audience, apart from your profile, so your profile is also another thing that would attract recruiters or headhunters. because people are looking at your profile, your years of experience, the trainings you've done, you know, some of the topics you engage with, because that gives them an idea of your skill set. If you're someone that's into startups, it shows, well, whoa, she's got exposure in startups, or you're into mentoring or negotiation. You talk a lot about diversity in the workplace, or you talk a lot about, you know, writing codes, or you talk a lot about, so based on the topics you engage in, gives other people, recruiters, whoever, an idea of your specialty or your strength or things you're passionate about or your core area of expertise. That's why you have to do that. So those are some of the things that attracts people seeking to connect with other people or headhunters or recruiters to you.
Okay, all right, that's great. So when the recruiters actually come into your inbox, how do you then determine to say, I think this role is best fit for me now, or well, maybe not now, maybe okay, what's in line with me now? How do I navigate to the next step? So how do you make those career choices once the opportunities are now in your inbox?
So first of all, I think you should already know what you need. So for me, I already knew. So it's always good to know what you want, because we always have you probably have your own vision. I would assume you have defined your vision or your career journey, because that is already key. I don't think the recruiters are the ones that guide that. You decide that. So I have decided, I have my own career plan. So this is what I want to do in the first 2 years. By the third year, I want to do this. Fifth year, 10th year, or I'm looking for these skills. So I'm looking for my next career move, something that would expose me. I was at like, I personally was at the point where I wanted to expand my career scope because I'd been in tech and I've done a lot of sales and management in tech, but in a certain market. So one of my moves initially was to expand it beyond one sector. I was called telecom and I wanted to expand it beyond telecom. So a lot of things I did was to do beyond telecom. I will go for speaking engagements beyond telecom. I will post content outside telecom because I was trying to show my leadership outside telecom. I would go for trainings outside, you know, I was doing a lot of things outside tech because I wanted a job outside tech. I was engaging with people outside, sorry, telecom, because that's what I wanted. And I was trying to connect with people also on LinkedIn outside telecom because I wanted to go outside telecom.
Yeah.
And that's how I would go into a new job that was not just telecom. It required government, education, still a bit of telecom technology, but that's what I wanted. Then, of course, I got into a phase where I then wanted something outside the region. So I wanted something that would expose me. I felt a bit caged to just because I already had a vision as a thought leader in tech on the African continent. But I then had a job that was just West African. So I said, no, I probably need something that is more African in nature. I want something that oversees just more than this small scope. So that's where my interest was. So that became a guide. So when recruiters came, sometimes this job was interesting because in terms of the job profile, it was high. But in terms of the scope, it wasn't what I want. It was too narrow. So people will come with like a C-level job that was for maybe a particular country, a particular unit. And I'm like, really good, but I'm really thinking beyond that scope. I want something beyond. So that became the guide. So it was a good way when they would send me those messages. And some of them I would talk to them. So I would respond and say, thank you very much. Let's have a chat about it. And I would share my number and they will call. Then I would explain in person. It was a good scope. It was a good in terms of the role itself, but the scope was too small. This is the scope I'm looking for. And the reason I did that is because they are headhunters or they're recruiters. So they have access to probably other recruiters that might have something that I'm interested in. So explaining to them means that they could also, whenever they find something interesting, they might come back, or they could actually recommend, oh, I have another colleague that is a recruiter. They recruit for a regional or continental presence or African market. I think you might be an interesting candidate for them. I will connect both of you. So that's the reason I make sure I engage. Because it's so easy to say, no, I'm not interested. But I feel it's also good to keep those relationships with the recruiters that they have hunters Maybe not for me alone, but for other people in future that might need it. Because once there's a relationship, they can always come back. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Took down a lot of things in my mind, like, okay, I'm definitely taking that. I'd like to encourage everyone that is on the platform, every participant, please get your questions ready. If you've got anything that you'd like to ask Jane concerning navigating forward in your career, be it leveraging on your online presence to move forward, this is your opportunity to ask, and we'll make sure that you leave this place equipped and ready to make sure that you're on the right trajectory for a thriving tech career. So if you've got any questions, post them up on the chat section, and then we'll take them up with Jane. So Jane, while we're waiting for people to ask, to share their questions, what final words of advice do you have for young up and coming women who are making their way up on their tech careers?
So it's so easy. Women, okay, in general, I would say keep moving. It's not always about perfection. And that also applies to women, because most times you want to be 110, 120% qualified for that role, for the next step before you go for it. It's not always about perfection. So don't wait until you're 110, 120. If you're 50, go for it. Because I hear people like, oh, but it says you have to speak French and English in the requirement. I'm like, yeah, worst case scenario, they'll tell you, sorry, you don't meet the requirement, but go for it. The process itself is a valuable experience. Just that process. Because think about it, you might not really understand how that organization recruits, but going through the process exposes you to this and these and these things are important to this organization. So next time I have to take it serious, I have to go and prep myself in those areas if I'm really keen in working for an organization like this. So that's why the process is important. And I also say that because sometimes people want to wait too long until they are 120, 130. Think about it, we also know sometimes we put some of those requirement out because we have to, you have to fill the pages. We know that some of them are unrealistic, and that is why you go through a vetting process. So we vet, okay, yes, we said it would be good if you can speak French, English, and Arabic, but we know it will be difficult to get someone that can speak all three. So if we have someone that can speak two, we are willing to go with that. So you take a chance on that. So that's why I said, keep moving. It's not always about perfection. Some people are waiting, they'll tell you, I would love to work in a company like this, but I don't have this certification, I don't have this, I don't have that. I'm like, have you tried? Just go through the process. Go through the process and expose yourself to what the requirements are. You might not make it the first time, but you learned about the requirements. Then you go back and spend some time and invest in getting those requirements. But just keep moving. I think it's better to keep moving than to remain stagnant. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Jane, for those wise words. Keep moving no matter whatever it is that you may be facing. So we've got questions from our audience. The first one is, could you please share some tips on how to get back after a career break and transition into a leadership role?
So I see it was Namrata that posted that.
Yes.
Namrata, become visible. That's what I would say. Announce your presence. Let's know you're back. Put up a post. I took a career break for 2 years. I did this, and this because I thought it was time to refresh. Now I am back on the scene, and I'm so glad. Look for groups you can join. And those groups you join is because you want to educate yourself about what's happening in the career scene, in your sector, in your industry, because you're learning. As people are posting stuff, you're finding out what's happening in the sector, you're learning, you're reading, you're engaging, you're asking questions. And after a while, you're comfortable to post. But I'm sure because you said get back means you already knew some things. You're already in a journey. So why don't you share that journey? That's a good way. Every week, share something. Before you took the break, you must have been doing some other jobs. What were the things you were doing? and just decide for the next 3-6 months. Once every week, I want to share one of the priceless lessons I learned from my last job or from my last career move. Yes, it was the past, but it gives people an idea where you have been because that's your experience. So literally what you're showing us is your career experience, but you are also announcing your presence. We know you're back. As you put that out there, people comment, people engage, and people could ask you, oh, you did this, what about that? What are you doing? And you could share, like, I'm not that anymore, but this is what I'm thinking of. So put it also out there. You don't have it, but put it out there. You'll be shocked because people think you have to have it. I didn't have it. I was interested in other markets and I put it out there. Like, you tell people, if the recruiter comes with the wrong job and you tell it's the wrong job, he doesn't know it's the wrong job. You tell him, yes, if it was 3 years ago, I would have taken this role, but that's not my interest now. This is my interest. I'm not interested in this market or in this sector or skill sets like this. And I've been working on it since I came back from my break. So that is what I'm interested in. If you see anything like that, even though the recruiter didn't come to you directly, sometimes the recruiter put a post, you can respond to him and say, Mike, I love this post about this job. If it was 3 years ago, I would have gone for it. But right now, my next career move is all about this, 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 this. And I'll be keen if you have any such interesting roles to engage. Put it out there. So that's a good way, but just make sure you find yourself in those circles. Be intentional. Look for those groups, those professional groups, those companies that's all about where you want to make the next move, and be present in those circles. I hope that helps.
I hope you answered, Namrata. There's another question from Michelle. She says, I'm struggling to get into the space I want, that is business analysis or product management. My question is, how can I showcase my skills if I have no work experience as a business analyst?
So Michelle is right. If you don't have the experience, you need the experience, isn't it? There's nothing wrong with saying you need the experience. There's some skills, like I said, I didn't have exposure outside a certain region of the market, but that's what I wanted. So what did I do? I started engaging in that space. Think about it, engage as someone that wants to learn about business analysis. Don't engage as someone that is experienced in business analysis. So look for people that are maybe in that space, in that role, and you can start to engage. You can either engage in their post or in their DMs. Sometimes people don't respond to your DMs, it's okay. But maybe when they have a post out, anything to do with business analysis, be curious and like, interesting post about this. Could you share some more thoughts about it? Could you point me in the right direction of a book or a group, or, just ask that question, because now you're engaging as someone that's interested to learn, not like you're engaging as I'm an experienced business analyst, but what you're engaging in shows what you're interested in, and people are reading, people are watching. Because the more you do that, the more you start becoming confident. Of course, it means that you're also upskilling yourself. So I'm going to assume that, Michelle, you are engaging to upskill. You're acting as a student or wanting to learn, asking those questions because you actually want to go. If somebody recommends the book, this is a good book for business analysis, then you get it, you read it. Once you read it, go back and ask them that question. Go back to that post and say, hi, David, you recommended this book 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago. I read it. 10 things I learned from the book. I would like to know, as a business analyst, is this possible? Is it possible? Because you read the book, if I were the one, I would respond to you. I will be so interested. Who is that person that actually went and read the book I recommended? I want to engage. Sometimes people are like, let's have a Zoom call. Let's talk some more. And in doing that, you can even share with that person, oh, by the way, that's the sector I really want to go into. So I'm open to jobs in that sector. If you have any openings, or if your company is recruiting, if you hear about any internship, that is the way you do it. So go with the mindset of a student, like someone that is trying to acquire knowledge, not like you have to share. But even in that curiosity, remember that you will still be visible to people that are looking for people in those roles. And then you start to upskill yourself. And with time, there should be a match somewhere.
Thank you very much, Jane. I trust you've been answered, Michelle. I would also want to encourage you to take on certifications as well. I was once a business analyst at some point, so if you want, you can actually take on there's APMG certifications for business analysts. Once you're certified, it's easy. It's easy for you to then, put yourself out there, someone who's already certified, and it attracts the right recruiters into your inbox. Another question for you, Jane. Maria says, could you please share some steps how you work on translating your social media strategy to the detailed tactical steps for your social presence? Do you do monthly, weekly plans for posting? How do you manage that?
So in terms of tactical steps, so first of all, I'm going to assume that you already have your vision of in terms of your career and your intent. But in terms of tactical steps, like I would work on each of the platforms slightly differently. But the key thing is that on the line, I would engage. So I say that so people know. Engage gives you visibility. Engagement gives you visibility. So engagement, what happened?
I can hear you.
Okay. I was saying I signed out. So engagement could be liking a post, commenting on the post, resharing the post. But some of the things I do, like for LinkedIn, I have my own rule. So look for what works for you. Everybody has a different rhythm. So initially I would post once a month. Then I wanted to improve the frequency. I started posting once a week because I had the bandwidth to do. Think about it. I have the support structure to do that. Remember, to write an article and post it once a week can be a lot. Now, I'm also going through a phase where it's like too much, so I only post an article a month. But that's not the only engagement I do. It means that I'm commenting, I'm liking, I'm resharing, and I don't use a rule. I just do that every day. There is no rule. So I have like my little spare time. So some people do it like, I used to do it like clockwork, but I found it a bit too rigid. So I used to have like, I would use Hootsuite and post every morning. You see all my posts will appear on all the platforms at 9 a.m. and on some of the platforms at 6 p.m. every day, every day, every day. But I found that with posts like that, they were not very authentic for engagement. They felt too static and rigid. So what I do is that now what I do, like I said, is once a month or twice a month. Currently, I'm doing it once a month, but it used to be twice a month. I will put out an article on LinkedIn. So my core engagement tool was writing. So I would write my own article and put it out on LinkedIn. It will mostly go out on a work day. A work day works for me because you have to define your target audience. My target audience were career people that are actually working in a professional career space. So I will put it out when they are mostly present on the platform. And a good time to do it, like very early in the morning when people have just on their way to work or they just landed in their office, they have some spare time, they want to check their LinkedIn. So that's what I put. And some tactical steps you could also think about when if you're doing that, if you're using that mode of generation, you don't want it too long. So for me, it shouldn't be more than 1,200. Actually, my rule of thumb is between 600 and 900. But sometimes as a writer, you get carried away and it's 1,200 words. But between 600 and 900 words is a sweet spot. So it's quick to read, clear, precise, something they can learn. So that's one of the core values that defines my content. My content is there to educate, to inspire. I don't want to put people down. So even when I write about something that, I'm writing it from a learning point of view. This is what I learned from that bad experience. Not like these are 10 horrible things somebody did to me in the office. It's more like, this is what I learned from that experience. So that's my defining core values, that my content should inspire, should educate, should teach. It should be something people could learn from, not something that would harass people, embarrass people, or put negativity out there. So that's some of the things I do. Other platforms I would do differently. So I do for Instagram, because I was promoting my book last year, I would post every day because I needed that to keep my engagement level high. Posting every day, but I could comment like 20 comments or 30 comments, depending on if I like the content, so I don't hold it back. If I like the content, I would comment. Facebook, I do slightly differently. It could be every day or every other day, but Facebook, my post will be longer because Instagram is more pictures, so it's more pictorial. It's easy to do that every day. Literally, you're posting pictures about something that is interesting, educative, funny, inspires. That is very easy. But with Facebook, I like to put a little bit of backstory behind it. So
Okay.
that I would do either every day or every other day. But more importantly, I would engage on the platform. So if I put that out, if people like it, comment. If they comment, I would engage, especially if they ask a question. I also do that on LinkedIn. So even though I put out that post, like I said, on a work day in the morning, in the evenings, I go and do my engagement because then after work, maybe 6, 7 p.m., I'm resting, maybe watching TV. I just take my phone and I start to engage. So people notice that even I could tell you that you see I would engage late in the evening.
Yeah.
I would respond to all my messages, and if I can't help you, I can connect you to someone, share a comment, or point you in the right direction of where you could find help, or just acknowledge that, wow, thank you for getting in touch and asking this question. Unfortunately, I'm not the best person. I can't really help you with this, but I wish you all the best. So you do that because you also don't want to make people, you don't want to put them down. It takes a lot of courage to engage online because
Yeah.
they don't know you, you don't know them, nobody owes you. So I always respect the fact that people are bold enough to engage. And I think it's respectful to respond. So yes, those are some of the tactical steps. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much. I'm sure Maria, I'm not, trying to check who it asked. I'm sure they've been helped as well. This was, yes. So looking at our time, I know there is one or two questions that have been asked. I'll give you just a minute to just answer this last question and then we round off. So it says, sometimes it feels like LinkedIn is a network for bragging. Okay, do you think it is okay to share vulnerabilities or mistakes with your auditory? Is it a good thing to do if your future boss might see it?
So Maria, what I would tell you, it depends, is the intent and the impact you want. So I could put up a picture. Somebody has put up the same picture. We tell two different stories about the picture. So I could put up a picture. Wow, this is the best day in my life. I closed a 100 million, I don't know, 100 USD deal. Nobody has ever done that before. Somebody else will put up that same picture and say, I want to share the 10 things I learned closing a $100 million deal in COVID within 9 months. Now, those two content, the impact is different, but it's the same picture, or it's almost the same post or the same article. In one, I am calling the audience to come and engage and learn. And I'm doing that from a point of, I want to inspire, educate. In the other one, I'm literally just bragging. I'm like, just telling you, yeah, I just closed a $100 million deal. How about you? Have you closed yours? So the intent and the impact required and people could tell. I can tell, I'm sure you can as well tell. That's why you see some people are bragging. And maybe because they don't understand the full extent of what they're doing or they're getting it all wrong. So that's why your strategy is quite important. So if you're there to educate, inspire, there's some things you put out there. If the intent is right, people can read it in the message because of the way you would tell the story or you will share the content. It will be slightly different. You won't just post I don't know, you got a Gucci bag from, I don't know, a client that thought you were so impressive and you just post, wow, a client just gave me this Gucci bag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody else will post it differently. Gratitude, the importance of gratitude, and talk about gratitude and why they're grateful to the client and why it's also important to show appreciation because that back tells the story. Slightly the same content, but told in two different ways. So the impact you're trying to create and the intent is important.
Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you very much. I think the questions that have been asked in this session have helped most of us glean in some tools and jewels that we're going to use for our own careers. And I'd like to encourage every participant who's here. Maybe you heard something that Jane shared and you're thinking, okay, I really would like to do this, but I'm not too sure how to do it. I really would like to maybe revamp my LinkedIn. I really would like to learn how to engage with people in terms of content. I'd really like to learn how to transition from one career level to the other. Please go onto our website, takecareermasterclass.com. You will find resources and online courses that can help you in that line. You can even book a consultation call, and we'll find out your needs and help you ensure that you are running a thriving tech career. So it's techcareermasterclass.com/book-online, so that we can ensure that we are helping you, hand-holding you, and taking you step by step to ensure that you are helped. Jane, we are so honored to have had you today. I know a lot of people learned from this session, but I did. I'm so excited and I'm ready to be going on to my LinkedIn profile and engaging and ensuring that I am leveraging on my online presence to land my next dream job. Thank you for making time to have us today. And thank you to everyone who took time to join in. I trust that you learned as much as I did. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and keep well.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it, and have a lovely weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
See you. Bye.